Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This is a continuation video to the welcome to Andrew Tate for becoming a Muslim. I did kind of watch briefly my previous video. I noticed that I did kind of say, right, okay, I'm going to cover certain points, and then I missed a few things I wanted to mention. Namely, I didn't really talk about Bitcoin in my previous video, and I said I was going to talk about that. I didn't talk about Islamic economics, or the Islamic banking system, or I'm not going to really go into Islamic finance and stuff. There's a lot of kind of videos on these kind of stuff, but what's really missing is like Islamic money, halal money. I know brother Sheikh Imran Hussein, he covers that topic extensively, and he does a wonderful job, and I've actually learned quite a lot. I've kind of looked at what he talks about and what he covers, and I just want to give my perspective on that, or add my little additions on top, or maybe say it in my own way, in my own opinion. And what else I didn't mention? Also, I didn't mention. I did say I was talking about the creation of women, and I mentioned that women are not a property of men; they're a trust from Allah. And I said I was going to talk about children as well, because some parents misunderstand as well that their children, are not their property; they're a trust from Allah. They're also a gift from Allah, and they should respect their children, treat them well, give them the time, listen to their ideas, speak at their level. So when a child asks a question, then the parents should sort of respect that, and give them some time, listen to what the question is, and give them a decent answer, like a intellectual answer, or not sort of say, oh, what kind of a question is that, or put them down, or just give them sort of like a fairy tale story, just to cover them up, just to get them to move on. So yeah, there's that, and also I can quickly mention during when I was talking about protecting one another's honor, and if someone attacks a Muslim behind his back, like backbiting or slandering and that kind of stuff, or speaks negatively about someone, not in his presence, even in his presence, or even if that person isn't there, that's not the point, but it's an obligation on every Muslim to protect one another, and we should always not think about ourselves. We should pretty much be thinking a bit like the SEAL team, like the SAS in the UK, the way they get trained. And if you watch their videos and that kind of stuff, they create this bond between each other. So each person is basically watching out for the person on his right and the person on his left. He's protecting life, and he's prepared to take the bullet for the guy on his right, and also the guy on his left. So he's protecting both sides, and likewise the other person is also looking out for him, and looking not for himself but for the person on his right and his left, and therefore they create a very strong unit, and they always value the other member even more than themselves. Okay, and that way they've got that strong bond, which makes them very powerful and makes them an elite force. So we should be like that. That's my dream, is to see Muslims united in that way. And I have lived amongst all sorts of people. I've lived amongst the Jewish community for a big chunk of my life, and I've seen how they cooperate together and they support each other. They look out for the weakest unit in the whole community, and they all come together to pull that person up. And unfortunately, I've travelled extensively. I've gone so many countries, predominantly in Europe, so East and West Europe, Scandinavian countries, and also a bit of across Africa, North Africa predominantly, and a bit of obviously the Gulf area as well, like Saudi Arabia and Emirates and so on, the UAE, Dubai, these areas as well. So I kind of understand different, and I'm always interested in like how different cultures work and how they think, and how people in the markets and how they interact. Unfortunately, I've not seen. I can't really say good things. I mean, I know you can't stereotype, and you shouldn't judge people based on their region, whatever. But unfortunately, when it comes down to the business or the community at large, it doesn't really gel well. I know in the past it was good and it was united, and during the times of obviously the Khilafah, especially the early days, the first 30 or so years after the Prophet Muhammad, it was the best years, and after that kind of started to a little bit decline until a big decline later on, and that's when it was the true golden age, if you want to put it that way. It was in that period, time of the Prophet Muhammad, and just after it, the Sahaba, or the rightly guided Khulafa leaders. Khulafa are leaders, okay? So Khalifa, like a president, okay? So that's just in case someone's watching, they don't really understand that. They think something, Khalifa means something to do with, ISIS or something else or that kind of stuff. It's not that. Khalifa means someone who's the emir, the leader of that region or the country or the community, okay? So having said that, let's not go too much into that. So let's start first of all where we're talking about the money system, and we kind of mentioned already, and there's a lot of information regarding the fiat currency. The big difference between, to keep it very, very simple, from halal money and haram money. These are my terms, and maybe other Muslims are using that as well. The haram money or the fiat currency does not have any intrinsic value. That means that the money itself has no backing. It has no value. So it's not like, each, like if you've got £100, $100 or whatever, it's just a piece of paper. There's no backing to that. It's like a promissory note. So I'm promising you that I will give you this $100. If you give it to me, I'll give you $100 just like it. So, if it's even if it's a little bit creased, whatever, you can exchange it for a brand new $100. It doesn't increase the value of the note in any way. So it's kind of the value is really determined by the market. So how the market prices it. So depending, like I was talking yesterday about, interest rate. You got treasury bonds, which are like I was saying, the interest rate and a loan. So the government borrows money, and from these elites. And then these guys, they print money and then they lend it to the government, and then the government has to pay it back plus interest. So they're making money out of fake money, and and if you say that to a child, they'll say obviously that must be illegal. Obviously that's something you go to prison for. But the crazy thing about all this is actually perfectly legal for a certain families, let's put it that way, which control the world, and they have succeeded in their plan, and that's why on the dollar it says he is pleased with our project. Who's pleased with our project? Who's in God that we trust? He is pleased in our project is none other than the Dajjal, really. Okay, so he's the false Messiah, and before his arrival, or I don't want to say before his arrival, but as he might be already here. I don't want to give too much information, but basically they have to set up the stage. They have to set up the whole system before he physically appears in front of the general public and presents himself, and then the whole fitna starts, or the trial and the tribulation of the Dajjal. So they are preparing the roadmap, okay? And I know quite a lot of these things might be like, whoa, this sounds a bit strange, but I'd like to tell you that from when I was a teenager, I got approached by Freemasons. I was invited into the Masonic order. I refused because I recognized straight away that this is completely haram. Although I know of Muslims, people that even have given khutbas in the mosques. Seen them, I can't mention their names. And not regular, not proper imams. I mean, I'm talking about people just, they've they've given a khutbah, the imam's not there, and you know, in a small masjid, whatever, they've given a khutbah. So this sort of thing. I'm not talking about someone that's gone to like University of Medina. I haven't seen someone that's educated at a very high level, because I believe if they are educated and they really understand the meaning of the verses, especially in Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 100 to say about 102, if they understand the meaning of these verses, then they wouldn't have joined that order at all, because this is just basically complete shirk and haram. And they didn't approach me, just to give you a little brief introduction, they didn't approach me like, okay, come join our club, whatever. It wasn't like that. It was pretty much like they've identified me, because I appeared in the newspaper. There's a lot of certain activities I was doing when I was younger, so I kind of like, okay, this guy could be, you know, something that we could be useful. And this is the way they told me. When the first guy that approached me, who was actually quite senior, and he started telling me about this sort of like brotherhood in the community and how they help one another and they look for talent. So someone like, as if someone's like hunting for talent, and someone, you know, you're good at singing, and you know, you get approached by, you know, a producer or someone, and he's prepared to give you like a record label or that kind of stuff. So that's how I kind of got approached, and then started telling me about all the charitable work they would do, like, you know, orphanages and that kind of stuff. And then gradually they started taking me through the doctrine and the whole thing. So it was kind of like in a stage process. But as I started to investigate and I started researching into it a bit more, I realized that they have a different God. And basically I went into a heated debate with a very senior Mason, which I can't mention his name on this thing, and he kind of tried to explain to me as if there's two parties. You have the Labour Party, Conservative Party, for example, and you know, there's, you know, obviously Iblis, and they know, and by the way, you might be surprised, but they actually know, you know, that Allah, they know Allah. You know, they know, they believe in Allah. They know there's a God, one God. They know the Quran is you know, it's from Allah. They also know that Muhammad ﷺ is a prophet of Allah. They know more things about Islam than the common Muslim, just to let you know. However, they have sided with Shaitan. They have sided with Iblis, and therefore that's the way they operate. And because Iblis and you know, Shayateen, they've deceived them. They've showed them the world, the dunya, and they've deceived them for this worldly desires. But yeah, enough said about that. But I kind of gone off a little bit stray on that. But yeah, so we you know, so they're not sort of thing that you want to sort of you know, get involved in. And I decided to just, you know, step back and say, look, I don't want to really be involved in this. I believe that the Quran is above everything, and I've taken the side of Allah, and is I'm a servant of Allah, and I'm not going to proceed. And I backed away from it, and I did sort of go through a period of suffering, not that I regretted, but they made my life difficult for a period of time, and then eventually kind of, okay, he's nothing, he's no threat to us, basically, because that's what they do. They kind of, even if someone has talent or potential, and if they can't take that talent, they try to crush that person, so he doesn't rise in society or a community or anything like that, and he's not recognized, and they try to close as many doors as possible. But we all know that it's all by Allah's will. If Allah doesn't will something, it doesn't happen. If people plan to, you know, they plan and plot to kill you, even with all the jinns and mankind, they come together to harm you, and if it's not written for you, Allah will protect you. And likewise, if the whole world tried to protect you, and if it's your time to die, you know, nothing's going to stop the angel of death from taking your soul. That's the reality of it. So yeah, so they pretty much, that's the thing. So so I kind of said about the you know, intrinsic value, money, and you know, money that has some sort of backing, which was like in the past, like dinar and dirham, and and now we're kind of controlled by a central authority or a central authority that's really predominantly controlled by certain families that have united for this cause to promote this agenda. And like I said previously as well, there's a lot of agencies, organizations around the world. They're all cooperating together, and they're all set up by the same entities, and it's kind of like a big spider's web, and that's how they sort of have managed to succeed and control the world and put everyone under that illusion that they have a free will. But they're really modern. It's like a modern slavery, although like the old-fashioned slavery does exist. I was looking at some statistics. There was one video on YouTube I seen as well that mentioned something about 50 million people are they've been human trafficked. Obviously about 30 million of them are women, and you obviously know why these 30 million women are being trafficked as slaves. And so they're basically, these are the sort of the traditional slaves. So they take these people, they kidnap them, and then they put them through this slavery, whether to use them for labor or sexual trades and that kind of stuff. And then but this is the traditional way, which is the old-fashioned way, which has been done for a long period of time. It's completely haram. It's completely wrong. There shouldn't be anything, and people shouldn't even participate in that. Muslims or non-Muslims, they shouldn't really. It's just completely sickening what goes on. But the other side, on the other side of the coin, the whole world, the rest of the population, they're under a different kind of slavery, where you're working, you're making money, but that money is worthless. If they decide, they can just collapse the economy tomorrow, and all the money that you have in your bank would be worth zero. The only thing that will have value is real assets, and you'll hear that a lot, about Robert Kiyosaki and so many people. And so these are the real assets. These are the things that you can trade with. These are the things that you can just, if someone's got milk or they've got food, you can sort of say, okay, here's a bit of a gold coin or a silver coin, and you'll be able to survive. Other people will struggle in that sense, and a lot of people will revolt. There'll be a lot of riots, so they can easily bring down the whole country if they just drop that economy, because they hold all the keys to every economy in the world. There's nothing that's been escaped, and unfortunately the vast majority of us have become modern slaves. Once you are now complying with the system, you fall for this scamdemics that goes on, and that kind of stuff. So that's why I never went and did when it came out, I never did that, because I looked at the source and I said, okay, if the source is not a reliable source, it's that whoever's recommending, giving me medical advice is basically Iblis, Shaitan himself is giving me medical advice. I would not follow that medical advice, because Allah has already told me that this person, this Satan, this Shaitan, is your clear enemy. Avoid him. He's your enemy. He wants to destroy you. So why should I then take medical advice from such an entity that's outright wants to corrupt me, outright wants to kill me? He wants the worst to happen to me. He does not love me. He's not doing it out of love. So that's my logic. And when I looked further, I found that actually it has a lot of bad side effects as well. So it kind of everything just will become even more clear. So that's that part. So now the Bitcoin part. Now I didn't kind of go into the Bitcoin. Bitcoin is pretty, it was, like I was saying to you, it was kind of started by the cypherpunks movement. It was kind of most of the members are computer science or cryptographic enthusiasts, and back in I think in the 80s or 90s, a long time ago, there was a big war especially by Congress and agencies like, you got the NSA, CIA, and stuff. They were completely against cryptographics, sending secured communication, having secure communication, because they felt, if people can communicate in a secured way, completely secure way, where no one else can see their email, so I can send you an email and only you can read it, and vice versa, and no one can get in between that communication between me and my mother, for example. I can't listen in any way. Then the government obviously won't be able to spy, they won't be able to listen, and they said this is completely it's wrong and whatever, and criminals will use these channels to do a lot of harm. That's how they kind of sell it to the public, and and try to fight it in that sense. And they made it a crime. And one of the computer professors, he went to prison for a period, and eventually came out. And then they overturned that, and then they came up with an agreement, just to let you know. And the NSA and the other agencies, they all said, okay, we'll allow them to use this particular algorithm, this particular cryptographic algorithms and stuff like that, which is kind of protects me and my mother's communication against a common hacker, for example, just a kid at home trying to hack systems, whatever. Maybe he might find it difficult, but the key of that algorithm is held by the secret services, the agencies, NSA, and so on, and therefore they can hack it. They can read every single email that you're sending. Obviously, they can listen to every single call. They can, do whatever they want. Basically, they could just open the camera and watch you all the time, 24/7, listen in, even when your phone is switched off. As long as there's the battery, it's got life inside it, and the battery is connected. Not like one of the mobiles, you can pull the battery out. They can sort of switch on use that low power and actually switch on the microphone and listen in to a conversation that might be going on, if they wanted to do that. And of course there's other stingrays and other systems they can sort of do. So it's really, there was a big battle against that. So now shifting from the 80s and 90s way now to 2008, an individual known as Satoshi Nakamoto, he published a paper, as everyone kind of knows now, it's in the public domain now, and he was saying, okay, I've cracked this thing, and we can use this, algorithms, and we can now, why he had this argument and a passion, obviously, and rightly so. I completely agree with him on that. Why is it that a centralized authority can have the right to issue money? We should give that to the people. So power to the people, give people the power to produce their own currency. Why should we leave it to, whether it's a government or a non-government or a private corporation? Why we should do that? We should take back the power. In the beginning, there was a backlash, because I got involved. I mean, thanks to my brother, he notified me when this came out straight away. It was the late October 2008, if I remember. Maybe it was November, I'm not quite sure. So we got involved straight away. We downloaded source code for Bitcoin. We had a look at it. We started playing with it. We started mining. It was very easy. Easy to get Bitcoins, and you can get quite a lot of Bitcoins. We had a massive amount. In fact, if we kept our Bitcoins that we had, we'd probably be maybe the richest, or one of the richest at the top, right at the top, in the world. But we kind of done that for a while, and we kind of looked at it, but we were going through a lot of difficulties. At that time, it was completely worthless. I mean, it was like a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a penny. It was like ridiculous. In fact, it didn't actually have any value. It had like almost zero value at that time, because there was no one was willing to sell anything for it. So it had no value, and that's the point, because it has no intrinsic value. It's not like backed by gold or anything. So it was kind of like, okay, we're producing these digital currencies, like it's like a game, really. Okay, so there wasn't anything, but we liked the concept, so we played around with it. We looked at the code, we played around with the code, and we seen that it was a bit buggy at the time. And also, while we were actually connected to the network and mining, our computers were constantly being hacked. We would, you'd get your cursor, your computer cursor would just start moving, opening files. Next day, I'll go to sleep, wake up next day, and I'll find all these pictures, haram pictures, with no, just completely just appear on the desktop. I just couldn't make sense of it, and it was a lot of this activity. The hard disk would get filled up with a lot of junk coming from God knows where. Hackers would just, the ports were open. Once you have these ports, because people are not into computer science, but let's just say doors. You have all these different doors. Your window's open, your front door's open, so anybody can walk in your house. If you're not living in a safe neighborhood, well, good luck. Your TV might disappear. Anything can disappear from your house because you've got the whole house is unlocked, and not only just the doors unlocked, it's actually wide open. Okay, to allow the traffic. So it was kind of like that, and we was getting a lot of hacking going on, and we just decided, hell, forget it. I mean, I'm not saying that our bitcoins will get stolen. These guys, I don't know what they were after, but these things were coming in all the time, and we had difficulty managing it. I didn't, at that point in my life, I didn't, wasn't that knowledgeable. I mean, I kind of like self-taught in programming and that kind of stuff, but I wasn't like in the academic side. I wasn't in, getting all master degrees. After that, I started doing master degrees and started learning about more into cybersecurity and, different software technologies and that kind of stuff. But that was much, much later. So so what we decided, I think it was a couple of years or something down the road, it still was kind of, okay, the value's coming in, but it wasn't that much. So I felt, even if you had like, 100 or even £50 worth at that time, it wasn't even worth it, for all the hassle. You can't do anything with your computer while it's just being taken over. You just have to restart it and try to. And then you switch on the miner again, and weird things start happening. So we decided, okay, so I formatted the computer. I don't know what my brother did, but I think he did something similar. And I sold my computer on eBay. So if someone bought that computer, if they remember me and they remember the shop that actually got closed later on in eBay, because I had a very popular shop in eBay. I would sell a lot of second-hand computers and T-shirts and various things. I had a massive review at the time. Unfortunately, eBay eventually closed it because I wasn't trading for a while on eBay, and they switched it off. So if someone did actually buy that computer and they managed to unformat it, you'll definitely be a very rich man or woman in that sense. So now that little story, but let's get back to the point. Okay, so why is Bitcoin haram in my opinion? Okay, the reason is, and why is it still thriving until today? It's not going to survive for very long. That's all I can tell you. But and the reason why it's thriving, I'll explain that to you as well. So first of all, the reason why I just want to say I didn't really, just to make it clear, I'm not perfect. It's not like I discovered it's haram and I said astaghfirullah and I deleted it. He actually went the other way. I deleted it, and then a couple of years after that, value started going up. It was actually still going up, and I started thinking, well, okay, I've lost that opportunity. I could have had that money. Maybe I could have done good with it. But at the same time, my knowledge was increasing in the whole system, and I realized that actually this could have been all haram income, and Allah only accepts pure income. So I said, alhamdulillah, maybe Allah was He didn't want me to profit in the haram way. And even if my intention was to do good with it, even if my intention was to build a mosque or do anything, to help people out or help refugees or that kind of stuff. So even if my intention was good, Allah doesn't want anything that's impure. So alhamdulillah, that happened. So it kind of went the other way. It wasn't like I'm such a good guy I found that and I went, wow, even if it's all the money in the world, I'm gonna definitely. It wasn't like that. I don't know what would have happened. That would have been a really difficult test to throw away, a huge amount of money for that. But it's a big test. Obviously, in hindsight, I could say I would have definitely done that, but that's how it happened. So Alhamdulillah, Allah done it for me, basically in a way, and I got rid of that. So the reason why it's haram, like I said also about fiat currency, the only difference is now it's decentralized. Anyone can produce bitcoins or any other cryptocurrency, but you can buy your own currency or create your own currency very easily. There's a lot of scams going around as well, a lot of scam coins and that kind of stuff. But underlyingly, all these coins and all these currencies, digital currencies, they have no intrinsic value, which is what we said about fiat currency, and therefore the elites or people that are at the top or controlling the world, the people that are the founders of the matrix, let's put it that way. So the matrix owner thought, okay, this is a great experiment, let's let it thrive. And I can tell you right now, it's not a secret. I mean, this is public information. You can Google it and stuff. There is obviously a digital shekel coming out, central bank backed, digital currency from Israel. There's other sort of central banks around the world that are creating their own, digital currency. And the whole idea is they're going to then undermine all these other altcoins and digital coins. And when people start losing their life saving they threw into these coins, and they're losing all that, the government will come out and say, look, we need to regulate this, we need to have more laws, and the only way we're going to do this, we need this, this is the system, and these are the coins that we approve of. So they'll get people back into the system again. So the people that had the intention to work outside the matrix will then be forced back into the matrix, because that's the only way that you can trade, the only way that you can now buy anything. If you take on the injection, we'll give you a couple of coins here and there. If you do this, you get a bonus, so you get like points. It's like a point system, similar to, and they're also very interested, and they very much admire what's going on in China. That's something as well. Although they from the outside you might see that the West and it's like, oh, they're against China. Actually, they love China quite a lot, and the way that they've got control, they've got a grip over society, and they want to implement something even better than what China's got in that sense. Okay, so they want to go even one step further. But so they're looking at the whole cryptocurrency movement, and they're looking at what's going on in China, and they're now trying to come up with something really interesting where they can now control every aspect of your human life. And now they will hold a record, a central record of everything. So if you misbehave, they can cut you off, and therefore your coins, you will not even have access to your wallet anymore. So there's that going on in the background, and it's very easy to bring down Bitcoin. By the way, there are a few attacks that you can, anyone can, well, not anyone, but people that have the resources to perform it. And one of them is the 51% attack. Okay, if you control 51% of the network, you can then create like a double spend, and so there's a lot of stuff. I'm not going to go too much detail because I don't know who's watching and that kind of stuff on how to perform it, but it is possible to do these things, and it'd be extremely easy for the people at the top, or people that have all the keys, hold all the keys to all the doors basically, so they can enter any room at any time and just do whatever. So yes, there's that aspect of it. So they can bring down Bitcoin at any time. I don't know when it's going to happen. That's something I don't know. They decide. They have things with numbers, as you probably know numerology and that kind of stuff. So they have something with numbers. They have always like this 9/11, 7/7, all that stuff. So they have things that go on with numbers. So they always like to play with that. So when they set a date, when something's about to happen, it usually has a pattern. It's not like something like a random date. Oh yeah, let's just do it tomorrow at 3 o'clock, that kind of stuff. They don't do it that way. It's already pre-planned way in advance. I mean, it could be like 10 years in advance plan, and we're going to have this scenario that's going to play out, and we're expecting the outcome or the public to behave in this way. The reason why we believe they're going to behave this way, because there's already a trajectory that they're following, because we're monitoring them on the social networks, and we know this is how people react to certain posts. And so they've already studied, they understand every single individual, and they know how to manipulate every single person, just like they know about certain genetics. I mean, I looked into my genetics, and it was very interesting. But yeah, so the way your genetic makeup, I mean, you could, certain foods can work positively for you, and sometimes just like someone's maybe allergic to something, so it may be harmful for someone else, depending on his makeup, his certain deficiencies and strengths and weaknesses. So we're not all kind of like equal in the same way. We're all equal. We have equal rights. But what I'm saying is that certain things one person might be good at something, and the other person might be weaker, but he's got a strength in something else. So as a community, as a society, we should be completing each other. We shouldn't be saying, okay, this guy's got this deficiency, and make up and point at other people, because you might not have the same thing, but he might have something that you don't have. So Allah has blessed him with something that you don't have, but you can't see it. It's kind of might be invisible to you. You might not be aware of it. So that's why we shouldn't sort of, take a mickey of someone, make fun of someone or anything like that. We should respect everyone, and we should look at each person as part of that wall, and we should all be united. And that's what I would love to see in the Muslim community, inshallah. May Allah guide us all to become better Muslims. I need to improve a lot. I'm talking to myself as well. I need to improve a lot. I need to improve a lot in my knowledge as well. I'm constantly trying to learn. So there's a lot of things I want to do. And so I spoke about Bitcoin, intrinsic value, the difference between money and that has intrinsic value, is backed by something. So having paper money is halal in that way, but it has to be tied to something that's real. Okay, so something tangible, gold, silver, even rice, or something non-perishable. Okay, I mean, I know rice is, but what you can also use that as a commodity. Anything that's also mentioned in a hadith, which was Prophet ﷺ listed a number of commodities, including dates as well, which can be used as money. But I'm saying the paper money can be backed by that, and that is completely halal in the Sharia, in my opinion, from my knowledge. I haven't really gone too deep. I haven't gone to an Islamic university, none of that. Okay, so it's just my own personal study and my understanding of the conventional economics, because I did study economics, so I know the ins and outs of their system. Plus I worked in the banking system, and I understand how the whole process from end to end operates. Okay. Yeah, one thing I didn't mention is children are not property. I didn't mention that. So I want to talk about that just a tiny bit. So unfortunately, like I was saying, some men, they marry a girl because she's attractive or whatever, and they propose, and then after a few months they start mistreating her, physically abusing her, whatever. And this is a pandemic in our community as well. It's not just the non-Muslims or someone that's gets drunk or whatever, and they go home and bash their wife and that. So unfortunately, we have to be realistic. It's across the board, because there are a lot of ignorant people, even if they are Muslims by name, because they don't understand. Okay, and I've had arguments with brothers who identify themselves, or one brother, I'm not going to say brother, but one brother who identified himself as a Salafi, and he really like almost killed his wife. I mean, the amount of damage he caused her. And when I intervened and I found out about this, and I had strong words with him, because at one point I did have a lot of respect for him, he told me the words that he owns his wife. So he's completely ignorant in that sense. He doesn't know anything. And I told him certain things, and he was kind of like, no. In my culture, it's like this. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people like that. They have this culture, which is from Jahiliyyah, and they've kind of carried it on, where they think the woman is a property, unfortunately. I'm not going to say all Muslims I think that way, or all people from, Asian subcontinent or the Middle East, or whatever. No, not going to stereotype. Just saying, there's the odd, family or communities that have had basically never had it corrected, and someone hasn't come up and told them, clearly, and fix that in their mind. Okay, just like racism, it's still in there somewhere. There are some people that are just racist because their grandparents were racist, and it kind of just carried on like that, and they never thought about it, that we all came from Allah. We didn't create ourselves, and we didn't decide, I was going to be born in Egypt, or I was going to be born in, Turkey or whatever. I didn't decide that. I didn't decide my ethnicity, or I didn't see. Allah created it. Yeah, Allah gave it to me. I can't have a decision. So they should learn to respect that. And so likewise, just like a woman is not a property, the children are also not property to their parents. They should be respected. They should be treated well. I'm not saying that if your child, for example, is about to start a fire, he's going to burn the house down, you don't stop him. No, of course you stop them. You don't just say, oh, please don't start the fire, you're going to burn the house, and try to explain to them what's about to happen. You might be a little bit harsh in that sense, but what I am talking about is when you have a respectful conversation, like a child comes to you and says, daddy or mummy, I don't understand why is this, and why do we do this, or why do we pray, and in school they say Jesus is God, whatever, I'm confused, do we believe is Jesus God? And you should take the time out and actually sit them down and talk them through it, just like as if you're talking to an adult. Yeah, treat them with respect. So unfortunately I see the complete opposite. It's not a theory, it's actual fact. I've seen it in my own community, my own close groups, and I don't like it, and I spoke against it. Also, the physical abuse. I'm not talking just about physical beating, but sexual touching, that kind of stuff. Children don't like that. Children are pure in nature, and somehow there are some fathers that are a bit twisted, and they have this homosexual tendency. I don't know what it is, and they behave in a very weird way. So when I see a father try touch his daughter or his son in a certain way, it kind of makes me uneasy, and I have to sort of like say, brother, what you doing, man? I mean, this is not the way how you do it. Oh, it's just my son. When do whatever you want for your children. I don't have any children, but they say these things, but it's not like that. They think because they own them, they could just do whatever, they can touch whatever they want, and it's all haram, man. It's just like, I just don't understand some of these people. But unfortunately, these same people, I would find them, I don't want to mention names or anyone or nationalities, but I'd find them trying to put their children into a Quranic school to learn Quran, which is good. It's good to learn Quran and all that stuff. But they themselves do not know Quran. Their parents do not know Quran. They don't, even if they can read the Quran, they're expecting from their child to be able to not read but also memorize the Quran, and they punish them if they refuse, because they don't know. The child doesn't see it as something fun. So you have to make it interesting. Yeah? First thing you have to do is you have to make the child love Allah, love Islam, be interested in the deen. So they'll be like, I really want to learn. I want to, because they see the benefit from it. They don't want to run away from it. So unfortunately, there's a lot of pressure for the wrong reasons, and because of that, I have seen, children have grown up, like a sister that grew up in that sort of hardcore family, and like I said, the parents are not even proper practicing Muslims, and I don't want to say more, but then the daughter decided to leave Islam later on, and I've seen that happen, okay, and marry also someone that isn't a Muslim, but because she didn't have the proper education. Okay, she might have memorized a few verses from the Quran, but she didn't learn Islam. She didn't learn what the meaning of these verses are. She just read it. So she didn't see the full picture. She didn't understand. She didn't study it properly. She didn't do it out of love. So it's kind of like memorizing something, just to, sit an exam, and then after you finish the exam, you walk away. So unfortunately, there's a lot of problems in our community, and they're not the majority; they're the minority. However, these things need to be tackled, because it's the minority that give Islam a bad name. Because someone from the outside, like a non-Muslim, they see a father and they say, all the Muslims are like that, for example, or they see parents treating their children in a bad way, and that kind of stuff. They will say, okay, this is Islam. They will think this is Islam. They will see Muslims that are dishonest in trade, or cheating and lying and doing all these things, throwing rubbish in the street, not caring about the environment, treating animals badly, and that kind of stuff. It might be 1 out of a million people that do that, but that one person might be seen by 100 non-Muslims, and they will judge Islam based on that one person's behavior. So we should be very, very careful. We should stamp out these things. We should start educating also the Muslims about Islam, specifically the born Muslims, not the reverts. Reverts are, mashallah, most of them are okay. Most of them, because before they've gone into Islam, vast majority, I'm not going to say all, but I know the odd 1 or 2 here and there, they come in and out and that kind of stuff, but the vast majority, they've done a lot of deep studying into the religion before entering it. So they've already covered more than the vast majority of common Muslims, because they've already read a bit of the Quran, they've done a lot of stuff, they've researched certain hadith and that kind of stuff, so they already know a lot more than maybe a Muslim that hasn't even picked up the Quran. They might just, someone that hasn't read it, they hasn't really understand it in a deep sense. He hasn't taken a surah and just gone through it and said, okay, what does that mean, and reflect on it and say, okay, what does that mean, and look at the meanings and try to understand the story behind the verse, so you can really enjoy the Quran, like the story of Yusuf or whatever, or the people of the ditch and that kind of stuff. People might memorize it, but I found out about it just much later on, when I started understanding exactly what's the story behind the people of the ditch, for example, and what lessons can we learn, because the Quran and the stories that are in the Quran, these parables, they're not for entertainment. It's not like a bedtime story. Allah, when He put something in the Quran, He put it there for a reason. It's actually for our benefit. There is something for us to learn from, so we can apply it in this life and become successful in this life, and also in the akhirah, the next life. This is my opinion, brothers and sisters. If I've said anything wrong, or I've made any mistakes, or my understanding is incorrect, or anything like that, please correct me. Create a video, attack whatever I said, constructive criticism, just quite attack, but give me some constructive criticism. Tell me about anything that I've said and I can learn as well. I'm an empty cup, right? I'm always open to learn. Okay, the only thing that I can tell you, if you're a non-Muslim, I've I've studied other religions. I've looked into other books. I've read the Bible a few times already. I've gone into the Talmud and the Torah, and I kind of tried to understand all these things as well. And so I've already got a good idea of all these and other books and other ideologies that go around. So respectfully, I'm not interested if you have anything, because I've already my cup is full in that sense. I already have covered it. I've spoken to a lot of people, from Hare Krishnas and to Jehovah's Witnesses to what's these other cults that exist. Can't remember now. I forgot them all. But yeah, constantly had lots of discussions. Like I said, I was involved in dawah, but in a very face-to-face way. So I would like walk out, and on my way to the mosque, anyone I see, just anyone coming my way, I just say, Salaam alaikum, peace be upon you. Stop them for a couple of minutes, just say, do you believe in God? And I'll start just a conversation that way. And yeah, sometimes people just say, look, I'm busy. They think I'm going to ask them for money. But yeah, the odd person here and there would stop and listen. What is it that I want? And they realize that I'm not actually asking them for money, and I'm not trying to sell them anything, and I'm just having a conversation, talking about the weather is nice, whatever. And then I start, getting them into a conversation, and then I tell them, oh, by the way, I'm going to the mosque. Would you like to join me? And maybe we can, discuss, continue our discussion. Because I am so if I could stay on the road just chatting, I would not pray. But so I had to sort of use it as an excuse to say, well, I'm going that way. If you're free, if you've got a few minutes, why don't you just come with me? And I would just basically get them to come into the mosque and just sit at the back, and they witness the Muslims pray. That was my strategy. If anyone was, I don't know if it's still effective today or not, but then I would sit them at the back, and then I would just do I'll tell them, and I'll introduce them to a few people and that kind of stuff. And sometimes, a few snacks in the mosque. I would just present them with something. Would you like tea, whatever? Just be courteous. And then I would perform the prayer. They hear the adhan. Depends on the type of day, whether it's a loud surah or whatever. So they hear a bit of the Quran. And then afterwards, I'll sit with them for a bit, take the Quran in English, we'll start going through certain things. And in fact, there was one guy, I'm not sure he was a priest or something. He was wearing, and he just said to me, he started telling me about all the miracles of the Prophet Isa alayhi salam, and he said to me, where's your miracle? And I just gave him the Quran and said, this is the miracle. And he started laughing. I said, well, just open any page and Allah will speak to you. And he opened the page and it said, bow down with those who bow down in prayer. I said, that's it. Allah is speaking to you. And he's saying, you have to bow down with those who bow. And he came. I said, this is an altar. Now you have to pray, brother. You have to pray. And he prayed. And alhamdulillah, afterwards, many, many months later, it's a long story. Don't want to bore you with the long story, but maybe if someone wants me to tell you the story, I can tell you exactly how it panned out. It wasn't like smooth sailing. It didn't like say, oh, shadun la ilaha illallah straight away. It took several months, and at times there were a lot of tension. Not from my side. I was always trying to avoid getting into a direct debate or confrontation. So I was always like, okay, you have got a question, I'll give you the answer. I've got a question, I'll give you a question, you give me an answer, that kind of stuff. But I wouldn't try to attack him. So I was kind of like, okay, all right, you're a bit angry today, no problem, I'll back away. Here, read this book, whatever. Here's a little pamphlet from the Islamic Propagation Center, and then have that conversation, and just keep that door open. And it went on for, I think, less than a year, a few months. It was almost a year. And then eventually he did become a Muslim. I haven't seen him before. I mean, this was like many, many years. Talking about 25 plus years ago when I was doing that. And the other thing I want to tell you as well, I was kind of targeting anybody and everybody. So sometimes I'm walking in the streets and no one wants to talk to me while I'm on my way. and I would see some homeless guy or someone selling a big issue, and I would talk to him about Islam. And I did take, this is a problem as well that we need to tackle as Muslims in our community. We need to stamp out these things. So yeah, I would take them to the mosque, and someone that's been on the street and that kind of stuff, don't expect them to dress like millionaires, okay? Don't expect them to smell great. So I would take these people in as well, and I ignore that. All I'm thinking about is the individual, the soul, and I'll take them to the mosque, and then honestly, man, the amount of people that have it's just complete backlash on me. All these elders, they do not bring people. Stop bringing people to the mosque. It's just why do you bring these kind of people? This guy didn't have a shower, and look at him. He doesn't even know how to dress. Can't he go and get some proper clothes? People just judge other people. They don't know their condition. I don't want to tell them that this guy's he was sleeping on the street, or he was it was a homeless guy. But they're the most amazing people on the street, even if they've got a drugs problem. Okay, I'm not going to deny it. Some of these people they have issues, right? And they've told me they have these issues, but they've told me about their problems that they had in their life. But these guys, they just because they have a house and they have got clothes and food and and they a shower and all that stuff, they can enjoy that. So, but then you can't judge people. So when you see someone looking rough, don't judge him and say brother, man, or hey, what's wrong with you, man? Can't you just go have a shower? Don't talk to people, because you don't know. Maybe he's living on the street. He can't afford a house. He can't afford to stay in a hotel. So it's not the same. Don't treat people like that. Don't judge people. So you just respect people, just everybody. And a lot of these people, they at least, I'm not going to say all of them became Muslims, or there was a flock of people entering Islam, but it was trickling in. The odd person would become a Muslim. And maybe I can tell you about some of the individuals that did enter Islam, and from what I know anyway, what became of them. And some people I've lost contact with a lot of these people because I've moved from area to area. So alhamdulillah, Allah's the one that guides, and but we have an obligation to do da'wah, and I'm guilty of not doing da'wah for an extremely long time. I try to kind of get started again, and I start and stop and stuff. I went to Speaker's Corner, like 20 years ago or something, and I met up with all these fine brothers before Ali Dawah came on the scene and stuff. But it's great that these young brothers they're moving forward, and they're doing a fantastic job. Alhamdulillah, and barakallah fikum, and barakallah for all the Muslims that are fulfilling that obligation of da'wah. We all need to do that. Every single one of us. It doesn't matter, even if it's just by one verse. Like it says, بَلَّغُوا عَنِّي حَتَّى لَوْ آيَةً. Proclaim the message, even by one verse. Even if you only know one verse, and that's all you know. That's all you know, and just tell people about that one verse, and that's it. That's your job done. At least you can stand in front of Allah and says, Allah, I you created me, you gave me all these blessings, and I used this one blessing that you gave me, or a little bit of my time, 0.001% of all my time that I had on earth for your sake. I did it. I did da'wah. I called people to your way. At least you have that. And I'm telling myself as well, I need to do something about it. Maybe I'll make some videos here and there. But I wanted to be honest with you. I'm not just talking to Andrew Tate. I'm talking to everybody on YouTube, whoever watches my video, and Muslim, non-Muslim, it doesn't matter in that sense. And what I want to do is I want to try my best, inshallah, to convey Islam in this positive way, and tell you and be honest with you completely about the problems that we have in the community, and also and make it very clear that all these things that you might have witnessed, or all these issues, violence or whatever you've seen on the TV or in real life, even if you've witnessed bad things, a Muslim doing something really bad in front of your eyes, in real, I'm not talking about the media's deception, but in real life, if you know a Muslim that's misbehaved or cheats, lies and stole or whatever, done any sort of anything harmful to you, know that this is not Islam. Islam is what's in the Quran. So always go to the source, go to the Quran, look at what Allah's telling people, what He's ordering people to do, how they're supposed to behave towards non-Muslims. There's nowhere in the Quran it says kill non-Muslims and all that nonsense, because it doesn't exist. And you know, anyone that does good, you know, it's not just a Muslim alone. Anyone that does good, they will get good in this world. Okay, so you'll be rewarded. It's not like you're not going to get rewarded. No, according to the Quran, according to Allah, you do good. You know, you give charity, you do good works, you help people, you serve others. Service to many leads to greatness. Allah will reward you in this world. You get your payment. He's not gonna, you know, He'll give you what you deserve, but you'll get it in this world, and that's it. Okay, which is fair. You know, it's like, if I give you an example, if I don't know, if I was working in a supermarket and there was two brands of supermarkets, and I you know, we have like Tesco's and you know, Asda, for example, and let's just say I work for Tesco's as an example, and Tesco's paying me my salary. They're paying me every month, you know, £1,000, let's say, for as an example, and I decide not to go to work, and I haven't been to work for a whole year. So the money was coming in for some, you know, I was getting some money, and then suddenly the money cuts out. You know, after a while, I look at my bank statement and I say, well, I'm not getting paid anymore. My employer isn't paying me any money. So I go to Tesco and I say, look, you know, it's been a year, I haven't received any money from you guys. And they turn around and say, well, you haven't been turning up to work, we terminated your contract, you no longer work for us, so why should we be paying you? Why should we be paying you £1,000 a month for not working? What for? So we're only going to pay the person, we've hired someone else in your place, you know, and he's because he comes to work. So you have to come to work to get paid. So why do you expect it any different? Why do you expect that you're not going to fulfill your obligation? You're not going to believe in the creator of the universe, worship the creator of the universe, and yet at the end of all that, and do whatever you want, enjoy your life, waste time, blah blah blah, do, you know, drugs, whatever, and then once you die, you will automatically go to heaven. Why do you think that? Why is it justifiable for an employer to not pay someone that's been absent from work for a whole lifetime, you know, 50 years, and you're expecting the employer to give you a pension after 50 years that you've never worked for them, you've never recognized them as an employer, and you somehow expect them to somehow pay you, you know, 50 years of income or salary, reward you. I mean, this is just a trivial example, but I'm just trying to tell you this how pathetic people are. You know, some people I've spoken to, you know, in the past, they've told me, like, you know, why is Allah not going to take us all to heaven? You know, I'm a good guy. Okay, you might be a good guy and everything, and you're a nice guy and everything, but you know, you haven't done anything, you haven't worshipped, you haven't even recognized the Creator. So why do you expect Him to reward you? And He will reward you for what the good you're doing here, but in the akhirah, the afterlife, which you didn't even believe in anyway, you didn't believe there was an afterlife, so why suddenly, when you go up there, yeah, or whatever, I'm not going to say up or down, you know, you expect something. You expect, you know, same treatment as someone who committed their life and recognized Allah and lived by La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, and followed, you know, the commandments to their best, and ultimately at the end it's by the mercy of Allah that will, you know, because we don't know. Someone might be praying, you know, like 24/7, you know, fasting every single day, and Allah might not accept any of it because it's not sincere. So at the end of the day, we have to check our heart, and we should make sure that whatever action we do is, inshallah, for the, for Allah, not for anything else. So that's the way we need to start to think, and that's the thing. So I kind of talked a bit, I waffled on, but I kind of just answered. I think I answered most of the stuff. If there's anything that I have missed and I've forgotten about it, please let me know. And inshallah, I will try to create other videos. I'm planning to do like just regular videos just after I finish my work or go out for a walk and that kind of stuff. But yeah, I'm trying to plan to do other videos. Ultimately, I would like to do videos, educational videos, in the areas that I know about, which is technology. So ultimately, I'm thinking of maybe creating videos on like programming and different technologies. And also, as I progress in my PhD research, which is in the field of Web3 and that kind of stuff. So when I progress, I'll start to sort of drop a little bit of information here and there, of findings and that kind of stuff, to help other people. So if someone else is maybe learning that topic, maybe it's new to the topic or something, or even doing some other aspect of research, they can also do that. And my research also covers Islamic financial market system and other areas, other aspects. I can't speak too much or give too much information because some of it is kind of hush for now. But yeah, inshallah, all will be revealed in the right time. It's not going to be in a very short time, it's long term. And yeah, just before I leave as well, if people are thinking about doing business, I have to tell you, or you want to make money, the value is not important. It's like you make $1 million, 2 million, 100 million, or I've never made 100 million, but I've made other values, and I've lost a lot of money as well. I've gone up and down. Like I said, I've failed so many times in my life, and yeah, it will help if I had a mentor. If I had a mentor or someone else that had that success, and then they kind of was mentoring me and telling me, watch out for this, don't turn left, turn right, and giving me a little bit of pointers along the way, because they've gone through that journey before, so they know the route. That would have helped. That would have saved me a lot of money and time and energy and stress as well. Big thing is the health, the harm, the damage that causes your to your health when you go through this massive test in life. But yeah, so if you do want to become successful, whatever it is, or you're just someone starting out in life and you just want to make that extra 1,000, 10,000 pounds a month, that kind of stuff, I can give you advice in that, because I've kind of gone beyond these levels at points in my life. And yeah, so alhamdulillah for that. What you should do, you should put down a plan, a 10-year plan. Do not put something like, oh, in 1 year I want to be a millionaire and that kind of stuff. Okay, maybe you can get lucky, but realistically, I haven't done it in 1 year. So you should always put down a 10-year plan, and basically just break down that. That's how I did it. Okay, so you break down that 10-year plan into smaller goals, very achievable goals. Not like I need to earn this by this. No, not like that. What activities I'm talking about? You break down to activities. So I need to read X amount of books. I need to, start summarizing certain points from these books, and what can I learn and what have I learned today, and this particular activity, income producing activity. It's not important about how much you earn, okay? Because there was a business that I got involved in, where the first month I made 83p. The first month, it was a whole month of hard work, going out, trying to sell and doing different things. And all I made is 83p profit after take out everything else. To someone who's maybe you can say sane would have given up, but that business later on grew very rapidly, and after that it made a few hundred, and then it was a couple of thousand, then it just kept growing in that sense, and it just kept going. And after that, the point is, what I'm trying to make is that for the 83p I worked a lot of hours, so many hours. I worked my butt off to get that 83p profit, so it looked like it wasn't worth it. But as the income started to rise rapidly, about a year or I think about 18 months later, I was able to just walk away and still get a few £100 a day. And then it came to like, okay, £1,000 here a day, and it started going up in that sense. Okay, eventually the business, we all make mistakes, and like I said, sometimes it's not about making it, it's about maintaining it. So it's about, okay, once you get to that level, what you do, investments you make. When I was investing with a few £100, for example, it was completely different, and I was very careful and that kind of stuff, and maybe that was the correct way to continue. And then when it was a few thousand, then hundreds of thousands, my investments were more risky. I don't know why I started doing that, but there are mistakes that I've made along the way, and when things go wrong, they went really wrong. So I ended up dropping like 99% basically in very, very short space of time. So I lost a lot in, you build, so it's not a very smart way to take a huge risk. But yeah, there's things, and you can learn from that. And I might not be the best example, but I can give you, in a sense of, I can tell you about the failures and the things that I've done wrong, so you can just avoid. Just make sure you don't fall for the same pitfalls. Don't fall. Just do anything else. Make any other mistake, but don't make the same mistakes as I did. Okay, because that would be bad. And I prefer at least I failed and I've gone through the lessons. And if I can just pass it on, just tell people about it and say, okay, yeah, this is really silly, but this is why. I don't know what I was thinking, but I made this decision and it just completely backfired. And yeah, it would have been good if it worked out, but it was more of a gamble than a calculated risk or a calculated side. It was more of a gamble, and in Islam, it's haram. Gambling is haram, but yeah, so we should be careful when we get into these sort of things, and we should not just, even if you have a large sum of money or you've been successful, always stay humble. That's all I can tell you, is that you always say, well, okay, when I started small, I was humble, I was careful, I was making, I was like doing a lot of research, spending a bit of time, doing my homework, and then making that investment or getting involved. And then once I got, a few years down the road, and now I'm seeing success after success, and then you get to that 1 million, 2 million point and beyond, you might start to relax a little bit and think, anything you touch will turn to gold. And that's the one of the things that basically made me lose a lot, is when I got too confident in my ability, and I started to relax all the little checks along the way before getting involved in something. And so just make sure you stay always humble, and do sort of salat istikhara, if you know it, and inshallah Allah will protect you, unless of course it's written for you. If it's written for you, that because Allah tests us, Allah gives us wealth and takes wealth, and gives you children and takes away, and that kind of stuff, and it's all a test, because this whole life is a big test. Okay, and we just have to roll the punches. That's how it is. Okay, inshallah, maybe a few years time you'll see me a little bit different. So if I'm still around, okay, inshallah. Okay, all right. Assalamu alaikum, and I hope to speak to you again soon, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.